inspired to bring out the long johns today. All right, welcome back.
Thank you. And thanks to everybody for the prayers and the food and the well wishes. It's been awesome. I mean, I went through cancer once before, and I was alone. So God was in the right seat, but I didn't acknowledge it. So this time around, Wilshire has been awesome. I've never had an organization like this, so it's, and all of you. But yeah, Wilshire was super. So, and they say life is full of adventures. Last month has been an adventure.
Sure.
Welcome back.
You'll like the sermon then this morning when, well, I don't know.
Jacob taught us
Jacob.
this morning at the early service. You're not
Yeah,
getting
Matt's
him.
been.
Matt Dodrell was.
Which is
Yeah,
that's a
good.
super job.
But he talked about being in the valley. You've been in the valley, and you're out coming
Yeah.
out.
Yep.
Well, good to have you.
Thank you. Good to be back.
All right, so today we're starting back up with the Affinity Groups lunch, which is just where you go to community hall. Is that where we have it?
Yes.
Okay, and you can pick a topic, and I guess you get a meal beforehand, and then you go and can pick a topic that you want to participate in or listen to. There's a list of them here. One of them is planning. We're bringing back One Starry Night.
Yeah.
Which I guess it's been a couple of years since
Yeah,
we've
something
done
like
that. All right, so we're bringing that back. For those who don't know, that's where we basically turned the community hall into a recreation of first century Bethlehem, and have various people playing various roles, characters. Anyway, that'll happen on December 21st, and we'll start with brainstorming and planning ideas today. Also, there's a couple of affinity groups for people who didn't grow up Baptist and are having to deal with that, and those who did grow up Baptist and are having to deal with that. So, something for everybody. Later this week, on Tuesday, we've got another jazz stand concert, Tuesday night at 7 p.m. The Gabe Meadows Quartet. So that will be on Tuesday. And then Wednesday is Valentine's Day and also Ash Wednesday.
So eat your chocolate and then give it up.
Yes.
And Mark, I overheard Mark telling someone that the next jazz group meeting, the Jazz Fest, what is it?
Jazz stand.
It's on Tuesday, Fat Tuesday.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. That was on Fat
Think
Tuesday.
about that.
I never
How
thought about
appropriate,
that.
huh?
Yeah. So, yes.
I don't know if anyone else read George Mason's column in The Advocate, but he talks about the fact that Lent begins on Valentine's and Easter is on April
Fool's Day.
You know, that's the biggest joke of all because we, outsmart the devil and life eternal and
There you go.
it was a great
those
column.
that don't, I mean, George has a great column I haven't read the one this month.
Every month, in The Advocate. And they're in both Lake Highlands and Lakewood.
So for Ash Wednesday, we'll have a 6 p.m. Service led by the residents, and they will do the imposition of ashes. And also, we have a book that if you want to do a reading, daily reading for Lent. The book this year is 40 Days with the Holy Spirit by Jack Levinson of SMU, professor at SMU. And so those are, I guess, available in a church office for $5. And then on the Wednesdays following Ash Wednesday, there will be at 6 o'clock on Wednesday, there will be a discussion time to talk about the readings led by, I guess, one of the residents. Anybody else want to add any announcements before I turn it over to Alison? Yes, Carrie.
There's one other thing at the affinity luncheon. I think there's a group for adoption
Yes.
and CPS and CASA volunteers. And I actually was planning on attending that, but since we're in one car and my husband will be going home,
Yeah.
I guess I won't do it. But that is a great opportunity for volunteering with CASA, which is a court-appointed special advocate for a child that is in CPS. I had one worked with for 2 years, and the adoption was finalized right after Thanksgiving.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Well, we're happy to have back Alison Wingfield. She is our Jacob and Esau expert.
She's our twin expert.
Our,
Yes,
This is the
Successfully raised
third,
them.
fourth time you've,
at least,
Yeah.
yeah. I tried to change it up a little bit.
well, sometimes,
I was like, you heard it, you heard it. I'm like, I think you heard it already.
yeah, when we cycle through our class schedule, normally we have a different teacher for the lesson, but you have been the anchor.
Jacob and Esau.
And for those of you that don't know, that Allison's also very encouraging to other people that are going to teach, and I just wanted, I think I've shared this with you all before, but Allison helped me out when I had a difficult lesson to teach on Paul and the resurrection, and she provided me some of her teaching materials. I emailed her back and I said, well, thanks a lot, and then I emailed back a little bit later and I said, wow, it looks like this could be kind of a challenge. And her inspirational response, let me see if I can find it, was, yep. Paul plus resurrection. Yikes. So,
I do what I can.
Anyway, glad to have you.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, and
Yes.
prayer
That's okay.
requests. We'll pass the book around and then address them after Allison has finished. Sorry.
That's okay. It seems like we get stuck at the beginning of this story quite often when I teach this, so I'm going to not do that this time, I hope, and ask you first, what do you remember about the story of Jacob and Esau?
Stealing his brother's birthright.
Okay.
They were completely different in personality and looks.
Everything, right?
Mhm.
Yes. Texture, yes, good, right?
One was the mother's favorite, the other one was father's favorite.
Yeah, yeah.
One was outdoors, the other one wasn't.
The what?
One was more outdoor
Yeah.
hunter, the other one wasn't.
Yeah.
Wasn't that
Yeah.
They
true?
struggle with each other from before leaving the womb.
Good,
Yes.
yes, yes.
One was holding the heel of the other one, that's his story, yeah. Pulling him back so he could be firstborn.
Yeah, or, yeah,
Yeah.
trying to be the firstborn,
Uh-huh.
good, good.
Later on, it came out a little better,
It did, didn't it? You're right, right.
but it grew up.
And that'll be next week, which I don't get to teach, but that's okay.
What's
So
amazing is that how the mother can be so partial to one kids to another.
The mother, well, and the mother was partial to one, and the father was partial to the other.
I mean,
Yeah.
this should be on me.
Yeah, yeah,
And
that's
that
it.
happens even today. Unfortunately, sometimes both parents favor one of them.
Well, that's true.
But at least today, people fake it and they say, oh, we don't know if anyone. They didn't even try to fake it.
Yeah, they didn't pull any punches on it, did they? So, you touched on a lot of great stuff, which some will expand on. The first story about the twins sets the stage for most of their lives. Rebecca is pregnant and clearly is uncomfortable, perhaps in pain, because the twins are wrestling in her womb. She asks God, what's up? Finds out, why am I in such turmoil? Yeah. Current language. Finds out she has twins in her womb, and here's a prophecy that the older, Esau, will serve the younger, Jacob. When they are born, Jacob comes out right after his brother, holding onto his heel. Esau is described as hairy and red, The Hebrew word for red or ruddy is a play on the word Edom, and Esau is known as the father of the Edomites. So Jacob's name plays on the word for heel, H-E-E-L, or grasp the heel, and could even be a play on the word A-Q-A-B, I'm not even going to try to pronounce it, which means he supplants or deceives. So very interesting. Names were very important in the Old Testament. Esau was a hunter, a man's man. He was Isaac's favorite, and he had earthly appetites. Jacob was quiet, a stay-at-home type. He was Rebekah's favorite, and he was prophesied to be over Esau, and opportunistic and deceiving. These verses also tell us, this is 19 through 28, tell us that Isaac, it specifically says in the Bible, Isaac loved Esau and Rebekah loved Jacob. That sets us up right there, doesn't it? So let's go to verses 29 through 34, and if someone would read those for us. I need to get a Bible, actually.
Oh,
Is
sorry.
there another one?
Yes, right here.
Out? You always have them out, so I just. Thank you.
Chapter 25.
Sorry, chapter 25, Genesis 25, 29 through 34. We're going to skip forward to our first look at the twins out of the womb.
Once when Jacob was cooking a stew, Esau came from the field and he was famished. Esau said to Jacob, "Let me eat some of that red stuff, for I am famished." Therefore he was called Edom. Jacob said, "First sell me your birthright." Esau said, "I'm about to die. What use is the birthright to me?" Jacob said, "Swear to me first." So he swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau bread and lentil stew, and ate and drank and rose and went on his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright.
There's a lot in the verses. So, questions or comments on this passage? What jumped out at you?
Through the whole story, Alison, it's the first time I've read it, okay? First
Okay.
time. And I gravitated to Esau, not to Jacob. I saw Jacob as, I saw Esau as more of a genuine person than Jacob.
Okay.
Jacob was almost taught by his mother to be deceitful, and that she committed the cardinal sin as a parent to favor one over the other. In fact, I guess they both did. I didn't catch the part that Isaac favored Esau, but clearly Rebekah favored Jacob, and so what I struggled with this entire story was it seemed like God, he was okay with Jacob at the end, and then the last passage. The last couple of verses of the last reading, I went, wow. I was like, it was almost a conditional thing with, I'll believe in God if God does this for me. And I read that and I was blown away.
Hold that thought, because we're
So,
going to yeah,
I
okay.
was blown away. I've got so many questions, I could take the whole class asking questions, but I started with 24, and I even struggled with I believe it was Abraham, and after Sarah died, and the fact that he fathered children by a bunch of concubines, and I struggled with that. And God seemed to be okay with that. And I didn't know why. I still to this day don't know why. So, I had problems with this entire thing. I mean, it was a fascinating story, but
Yes.
I go, these people are really flawed. I mean, flawed to the point of sinful.
But isn't that part of the point?
I guess, but
Aren't we all?
but it was that God seemed to look past that, and I just I struggled the whole thing.
Okay, that's
So-
fine. That's part of why we're here. Well, and we will flesh that flawed theme out a little bit more. So, any other comments on maybe just on this particular
I'm surprised
passage?
how easy he gave up his birthright.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
I mean, today, that doesn't seem like it's a big deal, but then, it was
a big
everything.
deal.
And he wasn't really starving.
Yeah,
He was just
yeah.
hungry.
This was convenience. It was like, hey, I really like to eat before dinner, you know, or just, you know, I want a snack.
Well, I just wondered, wasn't there like a servant who could make them a meal? I mean, did they have servants?
So, well, it's real interesting, and I will recommend this book, Son of Laughter by Frederick Buechner. It portrays this really interesting, I mean, it's a fictional account, right? But he takes it that Jacob was out in the fields kind of watching the sheep and had made this meal, may have been a mile or two away from the encampment, from their homestead. And Esau comes and does it, you know, has all of his equipment, but clearly even though he's a hunter, he was not successful on his hunt. He probably was out all day long. So he really was very hungry. But yes, you kind of go, really? So, but think about what do you think maybe the age is?
That's what I was just about to ask, because my
Yes.
sister was just griping to me about this week about her 15-year-old who made a decision that was extremely short-sighted. She's like, he's totally not looking at the big picture. And I'm thinking exactly, like, if he was a teenager, he's hungry all the time,
Yes.
and he thinks he's gonna die, right? He's got
Well,
food.
and not to excuse Esau, but that's the way I picture them. I picture them in this particular story, and we don't know for sure, caveat, we don't know, but that they're teenagers, right? And for those of you who don't know, I have twin boys, and so this is one reason why they stick me on this subject. So, who get along very well now, by the way.
I thought maybe you were a twin.
My ex, as a matter of fact, has gone to seek his fortune in LA, so I guess he's gone off like Jacob, but they didn't fight. But you all remember this, when they were in 7th grade, I really honestly didn't know if they were gonna kill each other or if I was gonna kill them. So, I mean, remember that teenagers, excuse me just a minute.
They were some of my scouts, I had to pull them apart.
Yeah,
sometimes.
you know, that's what I said.
Yeah.
They saw it. Oh my gosh. That was, so you've got all sorts of things, and you know, how many of you are siblings or have siblings, I should say? Okay. Did you always get along? Did you know how to push each other's buttons?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
So I think that's part of what's going on here is they're pushing each other's buttons. And I don't think Esau was taking this very seriously either. And Jacob, yes, saw the opportunity, but you know, he was probably thinking, oh, he's not gonna go for it. You know, I'm putting words into their heads, I understand that, but just to give it a little more of a contemporary feel, realize frontal lobe was not completely formed here properly. So, but, I'm sorry?
I was gonna say, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, that sentence, thus Esau despised his birthright.
Yes,
That really stood out to me.
that's pretty condemning, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's
It
pretty good.
is.
For them, in that day, in that family, that was really bad.
Exactly.
We don't think of it so much,
But at that time, it was. You're exactly right.
But a
Teenagers are
teenager
almost
still.
incapable of recognizing the value of long-term things, though.
Right.
Just humor, at least teenage boys.
Right.
I would
Jacob
agree.
Speaking
seems
as a
to-
former one myself. And father of a former one.
Jacob seems to have a jealous streak that an envy streak or jealous streak that Esau doesn't seem to have, or at least it doesn't expose itself in this story. And you could say he's a teenager, but it's there, it's subconscious, and it comes to the surface periodically. And when it does, it's kind of an ugly thing, I think.
Oh, it is. I would agree.
I think there's still something strange just about the naming of them. If it means supplanter, why would you name your child that? I mean, like, nobody names their child Judas anymore, you know, so it seems to me that would, you get 2 strikes about on him before the day he's born, so.
Why do you name kids Apple and Sparrow? I mean, you know.
Well, he was also holding on to his heel, so,
Yeah.
you know, it could also be a heel too. So you don't, again, understand that this was written in retrospect also. So here, the Israelites are trying to make sense of their history, right? And this is written during the exile. It's something to keep in mind that I didn't say before. So they're looking back and they're seeing all of this and telling about it, which is interesting. They're telling the good, the bad, and the ugly too, aren't they? They can't decode it.
No, but they're also probably putting their
Spin on it.
spin on
Absolutely.
it.
Okay.
Subconscious.
I want to move on, but let me, because I want to actually get through all the verses this time. But a birthright, back to the birthright point, is the conferral of rights and privileges on the eldest son, who was Esau by, who knows, a few minutes, just like Luke and Garrett were 6 minutes, 6 minutes apart. So, it entails a leadership position in the family, and it establishes claims regarding inheritance, which is interesting. We read later on in Deuteronomy, it's possibly a double share of it. So it's interesting that perhaps Esau really didn't care about that. Also, he was an outdoors person. He wanted to be outside. Maybe he didn't really want to be the leader of the family. That might be one reason why it wasn't that important to him. Again, I don't know, but
he was pretty upset about, apparently there was only one blessing.
And we're gonna get to that. Hold on, Ken, hold
He
on.
was upset.
Don't jump the shark.
So
Okay.
don't say he didn't care, he cared.
So, no, I know, but there's a difference, and we're gonna talk about that.
Okay.
Okay, so, which brings me to the next question. What do you think of when you hear the word blessing?
I think it's more of an emotional thing than money or material objects.
Yeah.
Well, in this case, does it mean that maybe because God had I guess I'm thinking that it was like God is looking out for you, is taking care of you. And that's what sometimes when somebody says that, blessings and you're blessed, that it is that God has done something for you or in some way.
Okay.
And that's the best way I can verbalize.
So, I think,
I remember when my mother died, and parting words are very special. And I almost view that as similar to a covenant between God and his people. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying it carries that kind of special nature.
oh, that's nice, that's really nice. And it really, at this time, was a way of passing on the covenant. Where Abraham blessed Isaac, and now we have Isaac thinking he's getting ready to die, which we'll find out. Well, I'm not gonna say more about that until we
Their traditions became kind of law about passing down their worldly goods, whatever the parents had.
which that's birthright.
That's the birthright.
That's birthright. So there's a fine line, and sometimes, I think a lot of times we conflate the birthright story with the blessing story, and they're two different stories and two different things. And that's what I want us to kind of think about as we're reading this. Because I know, before I started teaching this so many times, I would conflate the two stories of the stew and the upcoming story. They're two different stories, different points of time. So if somebody would read, let's break it down into chapter 27. What do I want to do here? 1 through 29. Let's do that first. I know it's long, but if somebody could read that for us, I'd really like us to look at it.
When Isaac was old and his eyes were dim so he could not see, he called his elder son Esau and said to him, "My son," and he answered, "Here I am." He said, "See, I am old. I do not know the day of my death. Now then take your weapons, your quiver and your bow, and go out to the field and hunt game for me. and prepare for me savory food such as I like, and bring it to me to eat, so that I may bless you before I die. Now Rebekah was listening when Isaac spoke to his son Esau. So when Esau went to the field to hunt for game and bring it, Rebekah said to her son Jacob, I heard your father say to your brother Esau, bring me game and prepare for me savory food to eat, that I may bless you before the Lord before I die. Now therefore, my son, obey my word as I command you. Go to the flock and get me 2 choice kids, so that I may prepare from them savory food for your father, such as he likes. And you shall take it to your father to eat, so that he may bless you before he dies. But Jacob said to his mother Rebekah, look, my brother Esau is a hairy man, and I'm a man of smooth skin. Perhaps my father will feel me, and I shall seem to be mocking him, and bring a curse on myself and not a blessing. His mother said to him, let your curse be on me, my son. Only obey my word, and go, get them for me. So when he went and got them and brought them to his mother, and his mother prepared savory food, such as his father loved. Then Rebekah took the best garments of her elder son Esau, which were with her in the house, and put them on her younger son Jacob. And she put the skins of the kids on his hands and the smooth part of his neck. Then she handed the savory food and the bread that she had prepared to her son Jacob. So he went into his father and said, my father? And he said, here I am. Who are you, my son? Jacob said to his father, I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Now sit up and eat of my game, so that you may bless me. But Isaac said to his son, how is it that you have found it so quickly, my son? He answered, because the Lord your God granted me success. Then Isaac said to Jacob, come near, that I may feel you, my son, to know whether you are really my son Esau or not. So Jacob went up to his father Isaac, who felt him, and said, the voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau. He did not recognize him, because his hands were hairy like his brother Esau's hands. So he blessed him. He said, are you really my son Esau? He answered, I am. Then he said, bring it to me, that I may eat of my son's game and bless you. So he brought it to him, and he ate, and he brought him wine, and he drank. And his father Isaac said to him, come near me and kiss me, my son. So he came near and kissed him, and he smelled the smell of his garments, and blessed him, and said, ah, the smell of my son is like the smell of a field that the Lord has blessed. May God give you the dew of heaven, and the fatness of the earth, and plenty of grain and wine. Let people serve you, and nations bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers, and may your mother's sons bow down to you. Cursed be everyone who curses you, and blessed be everyone who blesses you.
Okay. What pops out at you in these passages?
The aroma of his clothes.
Yeah, yeah,
That he really doubted that it was him.
Yeah.
absolutely,
And he got it.
yeah,
He really, more than once, he challenged it.
yeah, yeah.
Said-
So, I mean, do you think Isaac actually knew deep down that he was being deceived?
He strongly suspected it, if not
Yeah,
know it.
yeah.
Knew it.
I mean, this just paints such a picture to me.
Even the blessing. The
Yes.
blessing is biased.
It is, it is.
Yeah, well, wasn't there room for, I mean, there's one thing in there that's sort of binary, and that is, be Lord over your brothers, and may your mother's sons bow down to you. And I suppose if that has to be part of the blessing, there can be only one that receives that part. But the rest of it, why would we not wish that on all your children, sons, daughters, no matter how many?
Yeah, so it's definitely more than just an affirmation. This blessing was definitely more than, you're not affirming, you're not just affirming this person. There's a whole lot, as Travis said, that goes with that.
Yeah, yeah, well, and it's passing on the original covenant, is it not?
Right.
It said that people serve you, nations bow down to you.
Okay, I was just thinking maybe that was the way that they did it. Maybe that more or less was,
Passes down to the firstborn
Yeah.
somehow.
yeah, that was the tradition, to pass it to the firstborn.
Not
Tribal
necessarily.
chief, I think.
What?
He would be a tribal chief. It was an office, so if we think of, not just a family thing. Family was the head of the clan, I suppose.
That's a good point, I didn't think about that, yeah. So it's kind of equipping him for what is coming.
You know, the history of kings is always that they get in fights with their brothers, and they have civil war, and on and on. And something they wanted to prevent.
Maybe it's something to keep it from happening. Those are very good points. Back up a little bit. Why did Jacob object to the deception? Did you catch that?
Because he might get caught.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't, oh, I can't do this, mother. It's, I might get caught. I might get cursed. So,
But he was pretty quick on his feet. I mean, I don't know if they prepared the, why are you here how are you here so soon? You know, and he had the answer for him, you know.
he did, that's true. I didn't even think about
That's
that.
another
He
reason
didn't
why I
say
thought
too
he
much.
was deceitful.
Yeah, that's right, just enough,
You didn't
that's right.
elaborate on the details.
Well,
Absolutely.
this was a dysfunctional family.
Yes.
And the mother.
Yes.
The
What about-
mother's
yeah, that was my
loneliness
next
was-
question. What do you think about Rebecca's actions in this part of the story?
Pitiful.
Okay,
Do you think she's just helping the prophecy along?
I wonder about
And
that
it-
too.
it's a lot of Jacob's personality, because he had always heard he was going to be the favored one, and so he bought into it.
I also read into
Isn't
it
that
that,
interesting?
uh,
Yeah.
I mean, whether it was there or not, I read into it that Esau had married the wrong group, and Mom didn't like that group.
That's true.
And,
true.
and so instead of marrying another Hebrew from where they were from, I guess, he had married, what was the Canaanites or, and,
Hittites.
yeah,
Yeah.
and Rebecca didn't like that. She didn't like her in-laws.
That's
You don't have
very
any control over that. She
And-
kind of accepted, but.
And again, Esau, earthly appetites, we're talking more than one in-law. There's like 3 different women he's already married.
Oh, I didn't catch
I
that.
believe.
Okay.
I think I'm right
I
about
didn't catch
that.
Esau?
So-
This is Esau?
Esau.
Had married more than.
Yeah.
Esau.
Where was that?
So he already had, this is where they are. This is.
I know, but is that
It's
here?
Hittite
Maybe
Yeah,
I'm
it's-
wrong. Hittite wives, maybe it's not, yeah, it says wives, not wife.
So,
I don't know if
Well-
it's 3, sorry. So then he's thinking he wants to correct that. We're not gonna go into this part of the story as far as reading it, but he thinks he's gonna correct that by marrying a Hebrew, or it wasn't even a Hebrew at that time, but somebody acceptable, and to try to counterbalance what he'd already done. So that's.
Are you talking about Esau?
Esau. This is Esau, yeah.
I didn't read that. I guess I didn't go far.
right in front of
Yeah,
us.
Rebecca did, they did not, yeah, they weren't pleasant people apparently, I don't know. Okay, so, why was it important? Jacob already had the birthright, correct?
Well,
So why, and it sounds like actually this might have been Isaac's way of trying to repair that by the blessing to
If
supersede
he
it.
thought it was Esau.
Yeah,
mhm.
if he did think it was Esau. But why was it important for Jacob to have the blessing? Because he says, be Lord over your brothers. Well, let me back up. The difference between a birthright and blessing is the best I can tell. I've looked this up in numerous things. But while a birthright belonged to the firstborn son, anyone could receive a blessing.
Okay.
So that's
But
kind of
they seem to
interesting.
contradict though, the part about being Lord over your brothers
Yeah,
and may your mother's sons bow down to you. I thought that came with the birthright.
it's like well, the inheritance comes with the birthright, and yes, you are head of the tribe, but it could be reversed. And the other thing to think about throughout the Old and New Testament is God turns things on their heads, right? Things get switched. The firstborn is supplanted by the second. He turns things around from where the societal norm is, if you would. So lots of things running around. But,
Allison, did Isaac know that the boys that Jacob had acquired the birth?
We do not know.
I couldn't tell.
We don't know. I don't know if he did or not.
Which kind of goes back to what you said earlier, which is they were teenagers and they were just
Messing around.
messing around.
But it still says Esau despised his birthright, so he did give it up according to that. And he does complain about it later.
But Isaac maybe didn't know about that.
I don't know. I think maybe he did, because I'm thinking probably Esau was rather vociferous about it later. But anyway, a blessing could be given regardless of birthright. However, a greater blessing was given to the one who held the birthright. So, back to that. And in the time of the patriarchs, such blessings acted as a last will and testament. You notice at the beginning of the chapter, it says that Isaac thought he was dying. He actually wasn't. He actually lives a lot longer than this. But he thought he was. And they were highly prized as a means of revealing God's will. So just kind of keep all that in mind. And now let's go to, I think, some very sad passages, verses 30 through 40. If somebody could read that.
After Isaac finished blessing him, and Jacob had scarcely left his father's presence, his brother Esau came in from hunting. He too prepared some tasty food and brought it to his father. Then he said to him, "My father, please sit up and eat some of my game, so that you may give me your blessing." His father Isaac asked him, "Who are you?" "I am your son," he answered, "your firstborn, Esau." Isaac trembled violently and said, "Who was it then that hunted game and brought it to me? I ate it just before you came, and I blessed him, and indeed he will be blessed." When Esau heard his father's words, he burst out with a loud and bitter cry and said to his father, "Bless me too, my father." But he said, "Your brother came deceitfully and took your blessing." Esau said, "Isn't he rightly named Jacob? This is the second time he has taken advantage of me. He took my birthright, and now he's taken my blessing." And then he asked, "Haven't you reserved any blessing for me?" Isaac answered Esau, "I have made him lord over you, and have made all his relatives his servants, and have sustained him with grain and new wine. So what can I possibly do for you, my son?" Esau said to his father, getting emotional here.
I know, it's very, it is emotional.
Esau said to his father, "Do you have only one blessing, my father? Bless me too, my father." Then Esau wept aloud. His father Isaac answered him, "Your dwelling will be away from the earth's richness, away from the dew of heavens above. You will live by the sword, and you will serve your brother. But when you grow restless, you will throw his yoke from off your neck." Esau held a grudge against Jacob because of the blessing his father had given him. He said to himself, "The days of mourning for my father are near. Then I will kill my brother Jacob."
Okay, let's stop right there. I want to focus on the blessing part. Why do you think this blessing was more important to Esau than his birthright? Because clearly it was. I know, it makes me cry too.
I wonder if maybe it was more important because he later regretted giving up his birthright. And so he realized that he had lost something, and so this one became more dear.
I think that might be part of it. And I wonder also, the birthright was just it was because he was the firstborn, right? He was the first one out of the womb, even though there's twins, he's the first one out. Whereas the blessing reflects relationship, doesn't it?
I was going to say, perhaps he respected his father as much as his father respected him.
Right, he wanted that affirmation of relationship,
Right.
too, I'm thinking.
Well, this reads more like a curse than, I mean, it's not neutral.
I know.
Yeah.
It's not like, I'm gonna bless one of you and the other, make your way,
Yeah, that's
just go do your best.
that whole thing.
It's more like, I'm gonna bless one of you and the other, you're gonna have a crappy life.
Yeah.
Yeah. It reads more like a prophecy than a blessing, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
it's.
Allison, we got a question back here.
Yes.
I was just gonna say, I think part of it too is just like, in today's world, there might be laws that govern, something has to be split or however things are set up before. But then parents or whomever can give special thing, carve out something like in your will. You might say, well, land or money or whatever is split down the middle, but there's this one whatever thing that is really special to that person. And that's where I think that comes in. It's like, you can give somebody legally stuff, but that doesn't mean you wanted them to have it. It's just sort of like,
It's the way it
that's
is.
the way the law is.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's kind of what, it was kind of that double whammy.
More of an obligation.
Yeah, and this is
Right,
like he gave
right.
him the obligation of the birthright, or could have done that, but to give the blessing was like a,
Slap in the face.
yeah, this is what I'm choosing to do.
Right.
Ironically, I live in a duplex and my landlady died last summer. Several people know this, but she had 2 sons. It's the classic. classic situation. Not that the younger one, though, is anything like Jacob. He's very, he is what he is, straightforward, cool guy. But he's the one that lived in town and took care of his mother all these years. The other one is the oldest.
Inherited. Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
angry. I mean, he's just been bitter his whole life, and it's like I have seen it. Just,
Wow.
it's awful. I mean, it's just.
And it happens, yeah. It
Never
does.
speaks his brother's name. It's always baby brother, or it's just, it's so classic.
Wow.
Is it possible that Esau connected the blessing from his father to blessing of the Lord?
Yes, absolutely. Oh, I think
So
so.
it wasn't,
I think so, absolutely. I
So-
think that's part of it. It's all kind of tangled in there. But one other question is, why couldn't Isaac simply admit he had made a mistake
That's what I've been
and give the
wondering.
blessing over again to
yeah,
his?
why not?
Does anybody know that?
I think it's because it's a covenant, it's like from the Lord.
Covenant, okay.
I think there was something about the Hebrew, the spoken word, once it was out, it can't be taken back.
You remember
Makes
it,
it-
Dennis.
Speaking into
Exactly
being,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, it took on weight. It was not something that, unlike today, we're like, oh, well, I didn't really mean that. And that's
Yeah,
something I think we
That
need
has a
to
signature
remember.
today.
Yeah,
You
because
really
sometimes
can't
we,
take it back. Once it's said,
It's-
it's,
even today,
even today,
Yes.
especially if you say something hateful or ugly to someone, you can apologize, but it's there.
it's still there.
It's out.
And even though
Exactly.
the person says they forgive you, it,
It still
It's
taints the
there.
relationship,
Yeah,
doesn't
it
it?
does.
Exactly, I think that's
That's
something
what
we
brought
need
many
to
marriages.
keep in mind. That's
yeah.
gonna be one of our takeaways, I think, right?
Hit more than that.
The other thing is interesting, he the way Isaac sets it up, he said, go get me food, and it wasn't just because he enjoyed the game, he did, but it's also kind of setting up a ritual. It's kind of like a blessing ritual that was being set up for this, so there's lots going on there. And I'm glad you read to 41, because the next question I have was this blessing beneficial to Jacob in the short run? What happens after his blessing?
Esau hates it.
Esau wants to kill him, and we find out that he threatens to do so the minute Isaac is dead. And Rebekah, true to form, protects Jacob by convincing Isaac to send him back to Haran, where she is from, to find a suitable bride. And we pick up the story in 28 verses 1 through 4. I'm going to do this really quick, and then I still want to get to that last part. Gosh, yikes. Then Isaac called Jacob and blessed him and charged him, you shall not marry one of the Canaanite women. Go at once to Paddan Aram, to the house of Bethuel, your mother's father, and take as wife from there one of the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. May God Almighty bless you and make you fruitful and numerous, that you may become a company of peoples. May he give to you the blessing of Abraham, to you and to your offspring with you, so that you may take possession of the land where you now live as an alien, land that God gave to Abraham. So just want to point out, there's a big difference in here, right, to this blessing, and that Isaac knew who he was blessing now. So it's almost a confirmation, which is I think that's very interesting. Which brings us to Jacob's journey to Haran and his first close encounter with God. So we haven't really heard much from God in this, have we? Other than the very beginning that we didn't read, but where Rebekah goes to God to say, why do I have this weird struggle in my womb? So now all of a sudden God is entering the picture. Yes, Henry?
Just a quick comment. I think sometimes we make the mistake of reading Isaac's actions as being God's actions, and actually they're Isaac's actions.
Nice, yes.
And so,
You're right.
and perhaps if you just view this as an explanation more than as a justification for why things turned out the way they did, you could take it to mean that God can use flawed people that make bad decisions and do hurtful things and still
work through.
them.
Absolutely, that's a very good
And
point.
that's proven over and over again with Paul and other people too down the line.
That's exactly right.
So I'm sorry, I know you're trying to get to the,
No, that's okay, because I never get to this last part.
yeah.
Because it's all good discussion, it's okay, that's all right, but I do want us to look at this. I'll go ahead and read if you don't mind. So we're in chapter 28, verses 10 through 22. Jacob left Beersheba and went toward Haran. He came to a certain place and stayed there for the night because the sun had set. Taking one of the stones of the place, he put it under his head and lay down in that place. And he dreamed that there was a ladder set up on the earth, the top of it reaching to heaven, and the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And the Lord stood beside him and said, I am the Lord, the God of Abraham your father, and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie I will give to you and your offspring. And your offspring shall be like the dust of the earth, and you shall spread abroad to the west and to the east, and to the north and to the south. And all the families of the earth shall be blessed in you and your offspring. Know that I am with you, and will keep you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land. For I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. Then Jacob woke from his sleep and said, Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. And he was afraid and said, How awesome is this place! This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. So Jacob rose early in the morning, and he took the stone that he had put under his head, and set it up for a pillar, and poured oil on the top of it. He called that place Bethel, but the name of the city was Luz at the first. Then Jacob made a vow, saying, If God will be with me, and will keep me in this way that I go, and will give me bread to eat and clothing to wear, so that I come again to my father's house in peace, then the Lord shall be my God, and this stone, which I have set up for a pillar, shall be God's house. And of all that you give me, I will surely give 1/10 to you.
That was the one I had the most problem with.
Oh, yeah, if, what does it
Yeah,
say?
if, a
Makes it
conditional
conditional.
statement.
Yeah. So, and you're gonna see next week, Jacob is slowly transforming, right? He's in search of a blessing, and he gets a blessing from God, but yet he still is making it conditional. His relationship is conditional right now. He's on a journey. He's on a figurative journey as well as a literal journey. And I think keep that in mind as you ruminate about this.
Alison
Yes.
lecture, as I listen to the talk, I feel that sometimes, no matter how big mess we make in our life, and dysfunction in our family relation, and sometimes come to the time, God come into the picture.
Yes.
Evidence to show himself to you, like you see, and he gonna make a correction in your life. He going to change your direction. He going to show you, no matter how big mess he makes, this.
Yeah, and we make
how
a lot
big
of
mess he
messes,
make,
don't we?
And many of us continue to make a mess, you know what I mean? And
Yes.
sometimes that's how God is, that he make a correction. He changes your direction you're going, and make man out of you.
Nice.
How that is.
Thank you. Yeah.
I think it's also interesting, this is the first blessing that Jacob has received that he has gotten on his own
Legitimately.
legitimately.
Without, trying
Without-
to grab it or be deceitful about it. Yeah, it's
Right.
there, it's given freely.
Well, that
But you wonder
ulterior
why.
motive, it
I
seems
know you do
undeserved.
wonder why. It is undeserved, absolutely. Yes, Mike, did you say, what did you
I
say?
just said without an ulterior motive.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Isn't that, I think that's really interesting.
We pray the same way sometimes with the if.
Speak for yourself.
God, if you will. You know,
yeah,
if
we
you
try
will
to
do
make
that,
bargains.
you know, I'm gonna we do the same thing.
But it's a process to go through forgiveness too. And forgiveness is running all through this, in a way. Rebecca and Esau, not Esau, but
Rebecca and Isaac?
Isaac made up, obviously, stay together.
Right.
That had to be forgiveness.
Oh, that's a good point. I didn't think about that.
And
You're
then
right.
later Jacob and Esau had to
Yes, and that's
each
huge.
other, and that's huge, and that's transformative. And it takes a process to get there.
Yes, yeah.
Right.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. He's on a journey, he's learning, he's learning. And God has stepped in to give him a blessing. What does it mean to be a responsible recipient of divine blessing?
A lot.
Response.
Well, first you recognize that you've received that blessing. You don't take it for granted.
Good. Yeah?
And that's a, to me,
You have
that
to be
is the first
mature in your
step.
Christian beliefs.
Yes.
Or on the journey at least.
You
Okay.
know, we kind of see a blessing in everything, not just in a birthright or one thing. I mean, you know, I'm in Psalms and there's so much use of that word, blessing or blessed. And it's a way to say thank you to God. I mean, and God to bless you.
That's exactly right. The first time I ever heard blessing was when we said the blessing at the dinner table.
Yeah.
And you're blessing the food to God's works in your body, that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. It's an awareness of gratitude, isn't it? Sometimes we need to have an awareness of gratitude.
Would you say there's
Something
a
else?
commitment to change, or?
I'm sorry?
You asked him, and what was the original question?
Let's see, what did I say? What does it mean to be a responsible recipient of divine blessing?
And my comment was a commitment to change.
Nice, that's good,
Yeah.
that's good.
Mhm.
The other thing I want to point out is that God's promise isn't just for these individuals. It's for future generations. God set up, remember that Israel was supposed to be a blessing to the nations. So part of our response perhaps for our own individual blessing is to be blessing to others, right? So we don't just take it for ourselves.
It's a duty.
It is a duty. It should be an overflow. It should be an overflow. Okay, I've got 2 minutes, so even though I'm supposed to be in choir, no, I don't care. Okay. So, it is interesting that Jacob sets this aside as a place of worship too, just to remind you that he sets that stone there. And so we need specific reminders of markers of when we've encountered God. And this is what he's done here. And places of worship can be very important for that. Let's see. Couple takeaways. How do we treat those close to us? With blessings or curses? With indifference. So well-timed word of blessing can make a huge impact on even adults, definitely adults, and especially children too. The divine blessing, we have that responsibility, we talked about that, to pass on that blessing. God is at work in the lives of this family, this very dysfunctional, flawed family, for the ultimate purpose of blessing the whole creation, not just this one group of people. And then also to remember, the thing I think that you're struggling with, Ken, is that God is with us in the journey. This other encounter, this encounter that Jacob has, really the first encounter that we have recorded with God, is that God promises to be with him. I think that's the more important blessing, not the,
And then that bears
Far
on to
back.
the second encounter.
oh, absolutely.
Is that the same place? It doesn't say what
No,
place.
I don't think it is. I don't have my notes on that, but I think it's because it's across the river when he meets Esau. But I don't know. I don't remember, Carol.
No, it says Peniel.
Ask Fred.
No,
Next
right,
week.
that's Fred.
Or, yeah, Fred. Well, Brad's
I think it's
teaching
a-
this week,
I
right?
think it's a slightly different location, where he struggles with the man.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I think that's a slightly different location,
Okay.
but it's still all part of the same.
But it
process.
certainly has a bearing since he dreamed, had that first dream.
Oh,
it's at Bethel.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I have to just read
And
on.
Peniel. Okay, so
I-
that's two different things. What else do I want to? there's one other thing I was gonna say real quick. Oh, the striving was all to get a blessing from Isaac, right? But the real striving should be to receive God's blessing. It's not other people's. So that might change your perspective also, in relationship with other people. So,
And
anyway.
your motivation.
And
your motivation, very good, yes.
And the other little thought, but, you know, a blessing's not free.
Oh, yes.
No,
Yeah.
right.
We
It
need to
is
come to
not.
consequences.
I was supposed to say commitment to change.
Yeah, well, it's not, I mean, there's a whole lot that goes on with, I mean, good Lord, the whole story of Jacob, it gets pretty crazy, doesn't it? So, and he makes lots of mistakes along the way. Anyway, blessings on you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thanks.
Name tag.
Yeah, leave your name tag there.
Oh, yeah, I always do that.
And
You know that.
we
And
have to keep Dennis happy here.
That's
I
it.
know. I try.
Thank you.
guys.
So Ken, you wrote about,
Yeah, before
Mike Moransky.
Yeah. Yeah, he had colon cancer and he fell ill one day at the office. I wasn't there, I was retired, and he went to the doctor and the colon cancer had come back. When they did the exploratory surgery, I guess when they had him open, he had cancer everywhere. So it wasn't it wasn't very positive, the outlook wasn't very, he passed away last Tuesday. So
Colleague of yours.
he was 51, he left a wife and 3 children.
51.
What was his name?
Michael Ransom.
Michael Ransom. And then Jerry is expressing, I think you did this last, Jerry's gone. Marilyn Brand.
Brandt. It has
Brandt,
a T
Brandt.
on the end.
Is it a T? Okay.
Yeah.
Marilyn Brandt has 2 rounds of chemo, needs our prayers.
And this isn't related to the cancer she had several years ago, cancer of the tonsils. I think this is breast cancer.
She had cancer of the tonsils? What fortunate cancer can you get?
Is this,
As many as you have different types of cells
Appendix.
in your body.
Yeah, get the cancer of the appendix. How
her,
do that?
her last name is B-R-A-N-T.
DT.
D-T. D-T, okay.
Gil.
Gil and Marilyn.
And Carolyn, did you write about Hatchet? Yes, Lady Gaga, okay. So, and you mentioned her last week as well, I believe. Lymphoma cancer, facing life-death choices now. It's a fast-acting cancer. So, does anybody else want to add a prayer request before we close the prayer? If not, well, let's join together in prayer. Dear Lord, thank you for this time that we have shared together, studying Scripture, sharing words with each other, and throughout it all listening for your word. Thank you for providing us with your blessing, blessing that we don't have to earn, we don't have to bargain for, we don't have to do anything other than to be open to it, to acknowledge it, and to be aware of the change that it will make in us and those around us. Thank you for our spiritual ancestors, Isaac, Jacob, Esau, all the members of their family who show us this constant struggle that we have to accept this one simple truth, that you have blessed us, that we are your children, that all are God's children. We come to you and offer our prayers for the week. We offer a praise and continuing prayers for our brother in Christ, Ken Adams. Thank you for the life that you have given to him, that he now shares with us through both the peaks and the valleys of his life. Help him to know your blessing and your love. Help us all to experience this with him. We ask for prayers for the family of Mike Oransky, who recently passed away. Please help them through this time.